This essay is about the importance of mentors. Um, and if you go to my webpage and go to articles, click on articles, and then on the right-hand side, just scroll down, you'll see a subsection of in index pages of important issues that I consider critical issues. And one of them is mentors in me. And it has to do with how important mentors are to my life. And I'm not inventing something. I'm simply saying mentors are influential in all of our lives. Because who we choose or who we pick, who we set aside to be a mentor of ours, to whom we look up to, determines the kind of person we are. And it's true that we may not be at the end of our lives as great as that mentor that we followed was, but those mentors that we pick give essence to who we become. And I've written about this many times in the past. I have about 12.5 mentors that I consider extremely important to who I am as a person. And 3/4 of them I never had the opportunity to meet. That being said, probably, absolutely, the most important mentor to me personally was Bobby Kennedy. A whole generation of Americans, white, black, rich, poor, doesn't make any difference, all saw Bobby Kennedy as a mentor. I was in graduate school when he was killed. The world would have been a different place had he not been killed. But the time that he spent with us helped America become where it is today. Bobby Kennedy was regardless of, your background, he was one that was able to articulate the civil rights movement so that whites could get with it. And he was trusted among blacks. And it was when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, King was in Indianapolis. And he was speaking to a group of people after King had been shot, but the news hadn't gotten out into the crowd yet. And so here's a white guy telling a black crowd that Martin Luther King was dead. But that was years ago. 4 years ago, I went to Myanmar. It used to be called Burma. And there are a lot of things I wanted to do in Burma or in Myanmar. I wanted to, and I still want to, and I'm going back, and you'll be you're watching this video, it'll be a couple of days before I take off. But I'll be back in Myanmar for about 3 weeks. I still want to interview Aung San Suu Kyi, the lady. But there are two things that happened in Myanmar that changed who I was. And I'm not going to interview the lady. But there are two things that changed who I was as a person. Min Kunan, who just thought of this, I've written about this many times. Min Kunan is I've said it in numerous articles. He was kind of the Bobby Kennedy for the Burmese people. He was able to articulate their issues during the military dictatorship and still is trying to deal with the military. And I interviewed him at the beginning when I just got into Yangon, then went up north into the tourist triangle. And then when I was going north, and I don't remember whether I was in Mandalay or where I was, but I emailed him back and I said, I really appreciate the interview. I want to take you out for dinner or lunch when I get back to Yangon, and we won't talk about politics, we won't do anything, we'll just chat. And he wrote back through a friend of his and said that he didn't want to be out in public with me. I don't know what the military government in Burma or Myanmar would think of me as a CIA agent or something, but he said, I would like to take you or invite you to dinner at their Independence Day, which is on January 4th, when they got rid of the British after World War II. And so I went back there, and it was I could, all the old, what we would call in the United States, the old guard was there. People who had spent, Min Kunan spent longer in a gulag in Burma than I spent in 4 years of college, 4 years of graduate school, and 4 years of postgraduate school. So I had the opportunity to sit during this luncheon with all these people who put their lives on the line. Thousands that never got out of the gulags. So these are the lucky ones. I'll never forget it. Halfway through the luncheon, he leaves behind somebody and says to me, what time's your plane leaving? And I said, it's not until 9 o'clock tonight or something like that. And he said, how would you like to go to a protest rally? I went down to Shula Pagoda where in August 8th, 1988, Aung San Suu Kyi spoke. The military government didn't like her speaking and didn't like the protest. And so what they did was come in and shoot them. The numbers vary from a couple hundred to a couple thousand people, just because they were, just because they wanted freedom. And I walked around this group of the 88 generation. They were speaking near Shula Pagoda, where this protest was years before. And I know no single word in Burmese. I can't even say hello, goodbye, yes or no. So that was this noise in the background. What I did was to watch all the people in the protest rally. And the one single thing that I could hear in my head was Joan Baez singing "We Shall Overcome." I mean, there I was in Yangon, and my mind was drifting back to the civil rights movement and then back to Yangon and talking about transformative moments in a person's life. To see in Burma what we were going through a half a century ago. That was a transformative thing that happened to me, that I experienced in that country. The other was just as profound, but not quite as politically charged. And that was going to a home of my tour guide. Her name was Momo, and she had to pick up some piece of paper that we could, I don't know, where I was going to go next, what the hotel I was going to stay in, who the next tour guide. I don't remember what it was. I mean, it was not critically important, but she had to give it to me so I could go someplace. And she said, while I'm there, you can meet my daughter, who at that time was 9 years old. We walked into their living room, and there was this 9-year-old girl, sweetest child, big smile. And she says, "My name is Titi." And she says, "Do you want to play some games with me?" And we spent an hour playing Scrabble. In the 4 years since I was in Burma, Momo and I write back and forth on a regular basis about what's happening in our families and what's happening in the world. But I hear from Titi every once in a while, and a couple of months ago, she wants to exchange poems with me about our relationship. In a couple of days, I'll be back in Yangon. A couple of days after that, I'll be back up in Inlet Lake, in that area, and I'll see Titi and her 2 younger sisters, and Momo and Coco, who's her husband. In fact, Coco's going to do some being my guide, some areas up in that part of Burma. And when Momo was showing me around the area 4 years ago, I saw on a house, it's just a regular house, and it had a picture of Aung San Suu Kyi on the outside of the house. And I said to Momo, "Could I take a picture of you next to that picture of the lady?" And I said, "I promise you, I won't put it up on my webpage." The reason for that is that I didn't want her to have any problems with anybody in the government or anybody that would misunderstand that, and she would suffer. You know what Momo's response was? "No, take the picture and put it on your webpage." And I thought to myself, there's a woman with guts. And looking back on the time when she was my tour guide, and in the 4 years that have elapsed since then, and we've written back and forth, it is apparent who her mentor is. The lady. That's, that's just simply obvious. What I'm not sure that Momo realizes it, but it's also obvious that one of her mentors was Bobby Kennedy. In part because Bobby Kennedy and Aung San Suu Kyi are very similar in their attitudes about things. And it's interesting how this Burmese woman who looks to the lady as her mentor, as a Westerner looking at that situation, I can see how she has followed in the footsteps, indirectly, of Bobby Kennedy. So I assure you that Momo and Coco and I will have long discussions about mentoring. But I appreciate your time listening to this video. It's important for me in a way to get all that stuff out emotionally. It's important for me to write these articles, but it's also important for me to put flesh and blood, my face in front of you. Many of you people will never know who I am. And in reading an essay about mentors, watch my eyes. It will be important for me to return to Myanmar, Burma. So thank you for watching this video and reading this essay. And take care.